got an early copy of The Adventures of Amina, al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty, who wrote the Daevabad trilogy, which, check out my review. I'm so excited. This cover is gorgeous. I've been dying to see it in person. It is just stunning and lives up to it 100,000%. Literally going to drop everything else I'm reading and dive into this because, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm just so excited. Thank you to HarperCollins for sending me this. Absolutely made my day. And it's Valentine's Day, so this is like HarperCollins sending me Valentine. Thank you for that. It's the same artist who did the cover for Priory of the Orange Tree and Day of Fallen Night, and I think I like it better than Priory's cover. Ooh, I love like that the tentacle like goes over. That's cool. Sorry, it keeps wanting to focus on my face. What does it look like naked? Let's see. Love the colors. Very pretty. Does it have a map? It does. It has a map. Welcome to the Teapot Reads. My name's Sam. I'm the Teapot. This is what I'm currently reading, and I am so happy to see you today. Hello and welcome back if you're returning, and welcome if this is your first time here. I'd like to give a huge thank you to Harper Voyager for sending me an early finished copy of this book. I took a bit longer to read it than I thought I would because of other things going on in life at the time, but I absolutely loved every minute of it, and I'm so grateful that I got a chance to start this journey and just like prep myself so that when it came out I could, you know, talk to people about it and be like, hey, it's really good. It's really good. I think I've convinced some people in life to pick it up that would normally. This is my official review of Shannon Chakraborty's new book, The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi. This is the first in a trilogy. I think the trilogy is just being called The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi. I will probably throughout this video just be referring to it as Amina. That is like something I do. I'm probably saying names wrong. It's probably not pronounced the way I'm pronouncing it. Forgive my clumsy tongue, but when books have like a name in the title, a lot of times I will just like call them by their first name of the character, like The Invisible Life of Addie, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I will just call it Addie. I'll be like, yeah, it's Addie. This is Amina. So get used to that. It is set in the same sort of world as the Daevabad books, by which I mean it is set in our world, technically, just like historically set. And there are Jinn and Deva, you know, monsters, Marid, Peri, all those things that existed in the Daevabad world exist here. It is definitely set in that same like line. I do not know if it takes place before or after, but I'm pretty sure after. There's not a lot of like overlap. You can easily read this series with having no knowledge of the Daevabad series, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But there are some nice Easter eggs if you're familiar with it, and I think Chakraborty, she tackles this shared world in a really great way. What is this about? It is about Amina. She is a retired pirate. She has retired from piracy, from drinking, from getting married. She's had 4 husbands, I think, and 1 daughter. She's retired because of her daughter, who wants, or who doesn't want, but who she wants to be there for, and she wants to be there for her family. There was also something that happened that caused Amina to sort of cold turkey quit. All of these things. She also she wasn't a non-religious person before, but she was like sort of a messy religious person. And now she's much more devout, which is something that I really like seeing. I think it's really great how it's done. It's something that's tackled really well in the Daevabad series as well, the way religion is tackled. I really liked it. This is going to be a slightly rambling video. I have notes written, right? But I haven't done a review in a while, so it's probably going to be slightly rambly. I'm so sorry about that. But Amina has retired, and then someone comes to her who is the mother of someone Amina used to sail with, and his name was Asif. Amina is confronted by the mother of someone she used to sail with. His name was Asif, and he died under Amina's watch. Something happened, and that's sort of a core mystery of the story is what happened to Asif. And Asif's mother, whose name, like in one ear out the other, she tells Amina that her granddaughter, Asif's daughter, has been kidnapped by a Frank, a white guy. And this guy, his name is Palamenestra. Amina cannot pronounce it. It's hilarious. I think that's his name, but we're just gonna call him the Frank because that's what most of the characters call him. And the grandmother wants her back, and she basically offers Amina a phenomenal sum. She's like, I will give you all this money. You and your family can, you won't be impoverished anymore. You can do whatever you want. You'll be safe. Blah, blah, blah. Just go find my granddaughter. And she's particularly concerned because the Frank is very interested in magical and mystical objects. And the grandmother believes that Dunya would have knowledge to get him to a very powerful one. And that sort of sets off Amina on her quest. She needs the money. She really wants her family to prosper, and especially she wants her daughter to be safe and well cared for, and basically, have everything she wants. And it's not like they're living in any sort of nice place. The roof leaks when we first are introduced to the location where Amina is living. She's fixing the roof, it's leaking. So she has a lot of motivation. And she misses the sea. She misses the adventure. Even though she was technically a pirate, she definitely saw herself as more of an adventurer, which is another really important thread throughout this novel. I don't really need to say more about it than that, but it's her image of herself and her dreams versus what the world is going to set her in is very important. And yeah, she's definitely much more of an adventurer. So then she starts putting together her old crew, and that's where the story starts. So I love the Daevabad trilogy. If you've seen my review or my vlog, or you've heard me talk about books I've loved from the last year, you've heard me talk about the Daevabad trilogy. I thought it was really good. I think it is one of the most politically astute fantasy series I've read in a long time, up there with A Song of Ice and Fire, and just the way the characters are interacting with one another, the amount of political alliances and different things going on. Every character is really nuanced. Everyone is morally gray, even our heroes, and especially our villains. We aren't necessarily sympathetic to everyone, but we understand where they're coming from, and there's this really great interplay of motivations. Everyone has sort of multiple motivations influencing them and their actions. This does not have that. There is a political aspect to it, but I think because Amina is set so much more in the human world, there are aspects of the mythological in here. I mean, you're looking at the cover, there's a kraken thing. So there are aspects of the mythological, but they play such a lower role, and the politics that we get are from the human world, which are explored, especially with the Frank and his relationship to, other white people, and his culture, his family, and then the Frank, and it takes place primarily. I can show you a map because it's a map of the real world. It takes place primarily in Aden, and Socotra is an island. I don't know if it's real. I would say so. Focus me. Here. So what we would call the Middle East today. The book has a completely different tone than the Daevabad series, but even so, because I love Daevabad so much, I went into this one knowing I would be biased towards liking it. I like Chakraborty's writing. I was excited to see what she would do with the new story, and especially it's a much slimmer one. I feel like it's smaller even than City of Brass, which is the first Daevabad book. And that was kind of exciting too, to see what she'd do with the smaller scale story, because it definitely is, as much as there are big things happening, and it's not a save the world type plot, it doesn't feel as weighty as the events in Daevabad. This has a completely different tone. Immediately you are introduced to this book through just a very, very loud, clear voice. I loved it. I was living for it. I'm going to read you the very beginning real quick because it's just a fantastic, amazing way to start a book. So it does have an author's note, which I really liked. I'm kind of loving, I know writers don't have to explain their stories, right? But I'm kind of loving when author's notes are in there and they help, place it historically, or even trigger warnings are kind of nice. I'm going to be honest. And side note, as a bookseller, trigger warnings are great for teen books because I'll have parents asking, they're like, is this appropriate? What does it have in it? And I'm like, I didn't read it, but there is a list of warnings in the front. So you can look at that and get an idea. I loved it. I just got City of Nightmares. I don't know if the American edition does it, but the UK edition has a list of trigger warnings. And I was like, this is fantastic. This would make telling customers so much easier. We get, also these beautiful, we get, after the author's note, a little section called A Word on What Is to Come. And it sets you off so well. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Blessings upon his honored prophet Muhammad, his family, and his followers. Praise be to God, who in his glory created the earth and its diversity of lands and languages, peoples and tongues, and these vast marvels, so numerous that a human eye cannot gaze upon more than a sliver. Is there not proof of his magnificence? And when it comes to marvels, let us delight in the adventures of Amina al-Sirafi. Yes, that Captain Amina al-Sirafi, the smuggler, the pirate, the blasphemer that men of letters accuse of serving up human hearts for her sea beast husband, and the sorceress, for she must be a sorceress because no female could sail a ship so deftly without the use of forbidden magics, whose appearance somehow both beguiles and repulses. Traders along our fair shores warn against speaking her name as though she is a djinn that might be summoned as such, though strangely they have little compunction when it comes to spreading vicious rumors about her body and her sexuality, these things that men obsess over when they hate what they desire and desire what they cannot possess. I am certain you have heard talk of her. After all, it is tradition for the traveled men of our Ummah to share the wonders of the world by creating accounts of their voyages, particularly when these voyages are enlivened by a gossip of fearsome female rogues. Many such travels will swear their accounts are not written to tantalize or entertain, God forbid, but are intended first and foremost to strengthen the hearts of the faithful and provide evidence of the promised splendor of God's creation. And yet, as Muslims, are we not told to speak honestly, to ascertain what is truth and beware spreading falsehoods? And dear sisters, what falsehoods? For this scribe has read a great many of those accounts and taken away another lesson, that to be a woman is to have your story misremembered, discarded, twisted. In the courtyard tales, women are the adulterous wives whose treachery begins a husband's descent into murderous madness, or the long-suffering mothers who give birth to proper heroes. Biographers polish away the jagged edges of capable, ruthless queens, so they may be remembered as saints, and geographers warn believing men away from such and such a place with the scandalous tales of lewd local females who cavort in the sea and ravish foreign interlopers. Women are the forgotten spouses and unnamed daughters, wet nurses and handmaidens, thieves and harlots, witches, a titillating anecdote to tell your friends back home, or a warning. There are plenty of slanderous stories like that about Amina al-Sirafi. She was too relentless, they say, too ambitious, too violent, utterly inappropriate, and, well, old. A mother, if you can believe it. Yes, a certain degree of rebelliousness is expected from youth. It is why we have stories of treasure-seeking princesses and warrior women that end with the occasional happiness, but they are expected to end with the boy, the prince, the sailor, the adventurer. The man that will take her maidenhood, grant her children, make her wife. The man who defines her, he may continue his epic, he may take new wives and make new children, but women's stories are expected to dissolve into a fog of domesticity, if they're told at all. Amina's story did not end. Verily, no women's story does. This humble scribe... Oh, I should introduce myself. There's a bit more to my name, but for now you may call me Jamal. Jamal al-Hili. And I have met grandmothers launching new businesses, elderly queens fighting wars of conquest, and young mothers taking up a drawing pen for the first time. Indeed, we may only have Amina's story because she was a mother. In our time together, she spoke constantly of her daughter, and though it may be a bold assumption, she spoke to her daughter so that her child might come to understand the choices her mother had made. For when Amina chose to leave her home and return to life at sea, she became more than a pirate, more than a witch. She became a legend. This tale will sound unbelievable. What proofs and documents could be collected or reproduced? But when it comes to the Nakuda, the scribe felt best to let Amina speak for herself, to resist the urge to shape and couch her words, but for the sake of honesty, another truth will be confessed. Her adventures are not only being told as evidence of God's marvels, they are being told to entertain. So we get that amazing, amazing introduction. And then we get in chapter 1, it's Amina telling her story, and we get these sort of moments. You probably cannot tell because the camera won't focus correctly. But there's an M dash to signify when Amina is talking to Jamal, and it's not part of the story we're being told by her. And Amina's voice is also really distinct. She goes, God is my witness, none of this would have ever happened if it was not for those two fools back in Salalah. Them and their map. What? What do you mean that is not how you start a story? A biography? You wish for a biography? Who do you think you are chronicling? The great Mufti of Mecca? No idea what I just said there. Who do you think you are chronicling? The great Mufti of Mecca? My people do not wax poetic about lineage like yours do. We're not even true Sirafis. My father's father, an orphan turned pirate from Oman, simply found the name romantic. Don't you think so? As I was saying, the idiots and their map. So we get this like amazing beginning, and we get this frame story, although it's not as much, like we don't, there's stuff happening, but not really. It's Amina telling her story is the bulk of it. We do get sort of other documents thrown in. I didn't love those. Some of them were really interesting. I liked the Munasaba tales, but a lot of them were just like, okay, I don't think we needed this. I do love the trend of fantasy books where the narrator is like telling the story. Like Name of the Wind obviously is like the classic that started this. Empire of the Vampires one I have loved recently. And this one I thought it worked really well for as well. I'm a big fan. So yeah, the narrative voice, if you cannot tell, I absolutely loved it. I thought the writing itself was fantastic. The writing is even so very different from Dave Abad. Like, if I were going into this and did not know it was the same author or the shared world or anything, I would not think it was, because it's so distinct and so different, but just as good, right? Nothing was taken away by switch of voice. I think it's quite the talent of a writer to be able to do this, to be very chameleon. And I loved it. I loved it so much. I thought that was just a fantastic standout piece from this book. Amina herself is a great character. I really liked her. I am a big fan of another trend in fantasy that we're seeing more of, which is mothers in fantasy as protagonists. It's something I am happy there's more of. I definitely want to extend my reading and make sure I'm picking up more of those books, but I think Kate Elliott just had one come out. The Bitch Queen Chronicles, is that what they're called? Let me double check. Bitch Queen books? Chronicles of the Bitch Queen series by K.S. Veloso. The Wolf of Oroñaro is the first one there. She is a mother. I love this. I love this trend of badass women writing or having stories told about them. It's really great, and I am a big fan. So yeah, love that about Mina, and I do like her character overall. Again, besides being a mother, her being an older character in fantasy was sort of really refreshing. I feel like we see a lot of older men, but not a lot of older women who can really hold their own still. And Amina is super competent, and I loved her. Like, all around, I loved her. I don't really have anything bad to say about her. I think her motivations made sense, her character growth and arc made sense, and her quirks were really fun. The fact that she will only have sex if she's married to a man, absolutely loved that. I thought that was a really fun character trait, which is the reason she keeps getting married, and one of the reasons she gets into trouble, because she has a very quick marriage because she is horny, basically, at one point. And there's actually a very important plot moment, and I loved that whole scene. I was like, yeah, okay, this is great. This is hilarious. This is fantastic. The other characters, her crew, I did really like them as characters. I think that every crew member we got, the further into the crew we got, the better the characters were. I liked, oh my goodness, the names. I liked her first, Delilah is the first one we meet, and she's like a poisoner. I liked her. I thought she was cool, but she just wasn't giving enough. And then we meet Amina's first mate, and I do not know why I'm completely blanking on his name, so I feel Tinbu. We meet Tinbu, and he was more interesting than Delilah. I was like, okay, Tinbu is cool. And then we meet Majid, I think is how you pronounce his name. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love Majid. He's my favorite character. Like, I love him. He's great. He's awesome. And then we meet Raksh. Raksh is my new favorite character. Hello, welcome to the pantheon of favorite characters, Raksh. I love you so much. As soon as he entered the book, which, let me see if I can pinpoint the exact page. I absolutely was like, from the second he entered, I was like, this is it. This is phenomenal. Everything is better. It's kind of far, unfortunately. 215, page 215, so about halfway through, a little before halfway through, Raksh is introduced. He is the standout character, VIP, MVP, absolutely stole the show every time he was on page. I love him so much. I love him so much. I don't know if I was meant to, but I do. He's like literally just the world to me. He fully So, like, I was, like, debating what to rate this. I was like, is it, like, 3.5, 4, 4.5? He brought it to 4.5. I was, like, in the, like, I don't know. I was like, Raksh makes it 4.5. He is worth, like, at least a full star of rating. I loved him so much. I loved him. He brings so much to the story. It's not just, like, I think he's a great character. He brings so much to the story, and his introduction really opens the story up, the world up, and just... he was just perfect. He completed this book. He is like, what would be like an iconic character to compare him to? I don't know. I think I do know, but I don't know. He's just great. Okay. Raksh, like literally after he entered the page, everything was brightened up. It was like the sun peeking out on a cloudy day. I love him so much. As for the other characters, I like them. I actually really love Majid. I think he was, if Raksh didn't exist, Majid would have been my favorite. I thought he was great. I did not know what to expect in the lead up to him that we get. And Amina, like thinking about him and talking about him, I was like, he seems interesting. But then we meet him and I was like, I love him so much as well. He's precious. He is a very like comfortable character to read about, but also an interesting character to read about. I just felt like of all the characters, he was the one that I had the firmest grip on until Raksh shows up. And Amina, besides Amina, because we were in her head, so you get a pretty firm grip of her. But like Delilah and Tinbu, I liked them as characters, but I didn't feel connected to them. Majid comes up immediately. I was like, there it is. There is that character work that Shannon Chakraborty is so good at. So I think that one of the big problems with the character dynamics of this book, because there is a sort of found family aspect, and it's not completely working for me, and I think that's one of the biggest problems. I fully believe the characters were on a crew together. I 100% believe that. I think that is not just believable, but well established, and there was not a doubt in my mind. However, I'm not convinced they were friends. That might sound strange, because we're told time and time again that they're friends, but we don't really see them doing friendly things. Yes, they're on this like quest, and it's a big quest, but we do get some flashbacks, and in the flashbacks it's pretty much just Amina alone, or Amina and non-Tinbu, Delilah, or Majid characters, and that's fine because it's a slim book building up the story itself. But we're supposed to believe, yes, they're close friends. They've been doing this forever. I didn't 100% believe the friendship thing because of it. I think even small moments in between the characters would have done a lot to do this. Like casual intimacy, basically. Like Delilah could have brushed against like Amina's arm, or Tinbu could have, I don't know, made like some sort of joke that is like clearly an inside joke and the reader doesn't need to get. I don't know. I just felt like there was that aspect missing from the book. And it didn't detract necessarily, but it made it harder to connect to the characters because there wasn't much personality of like group personality between them to latch onto. Because of this, and because the first half of the book really is about building up this crew, the first half could drag. That is something I noticed right away because the beginning has such a strong start. But it took me a lot longer to get through the first half of the book than the second half of the book because it was so focused on building up the crew and reaffirming everyone's place. And that's fine to a degree, but there wasn't much else happening. And this is a fairly straightforward story. It is a quest storyline, and it is accomplish these goals, and then you can move on, and then you can complete the quest. So it's a straightforward storyline, and the fact that the first half of this book, it's 400, almost 500 pages long, I felt like sometimes nothing was happening, not even the building of the crew. It really did drag. Again, Raksh saved it when he shows up. I'm like, hello. Hello, sailor, right? No, but I wish more was going on in the first half. It doesn't drag out of the gate because that, like I said, that beginning is fantastic. I think after she finds Delilah is when it starts to kind of like scrape against the ground. And by not a lot of things happening, this kind of rounds back to the lack of sort of political machinations. It's a very different book. I don't expect it to read like Davabad or have a plot like Davabad. However, how do you go from this intensely complex story building and world building and character motivations coming from all these different places, and then you have a villain that falls flat? Like, he has a pretty clear motivation, and we understand the motivation. And while there's like some nuance to his character, by the end I did not feel like he was much of a threat, really. I felt like, oh yeah, he was a bad guy because of this, and then oh yeah, maybe a little sympathy, but no, not really. He's just a bad guy, and the things that happened to him, they just made him a bad guy. Like, well, how do we go from the Davabad villains to a Frank who is really two-dimensional? I was so disappointed in that, and especially the villain. But the fact that we don't get this really lovely nuance to a lot of these characters. And maybe that's something that will come later, and maybe it's because of the genre it's in, but I still feel like you have such a rich world. We get to see so much of this really beautiful historical point in time, and there's a lot going on. There are complicated politics of this time. We don't really get to see that, partly because Amina and her crew are on the outskirts of all this. They're pirates, but also because I feel like they're just so in line with one another. Yeah, they have their differences. Tinbu, Amina, and Delilah all practice very different religions, but that it's like a 2-line notice, maybe a little more, maybe like a paragraph's worth of notice to that sort of thing. Otherwise, they're all aligned, and I feel like they don't have to be. Like, Delilah comes from a very different sort of place than Tinbu does. And they can still all be on the same side. I'm not saying they need to fight, but like, Tinbu was a slave. I imagine he has really strong beliefs against slavers, but we're not seeing that inform him. I don't know. There just needed to be more. I've said nuance so many times, but there needed to be more intricacies to the characters, I think, and the character motivations. And I would probably be saying that even if Davabad didn't exist, because they fell so flat, but especially having read the Davabad series and seeing what Shannon Chakraborty could do, it was disappointing not to see really any of that appear here. Even a fraction of it would have been appreciated, right? Very appreciated. There's also, so it's a trilogy, which I love. I love series. You know me. I'm not going to say this could stand on its own, because there's a lot of threads that do pull off into the next book. I can already tell. But the force of the plot, the momentum, felt a little shoehorned. I was like, oh, okay, great, interesting concept. Set up a bit too late. Actually, set up sort of in the... It's similar to one of the problems I had with Davabad, the final book, but I'm not going to talk about that because it is a little bit of a spoiler. But I was like... You couldn't have set this up sooner. You couldn't have... I don't know. It feels like in another universe... I did really like Amina. I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't. Spoiler alert, I gave it 4.5 stars. But I almost feel like this was a prequel. And it's weird because we understand that this is the second sort of adventure of Amina al-Sirafi. She's had adventures and she's doing them again. But in some ways it felt like a prequel. And that the real plot is going to be starting in the next book. And this was just a setup for the characters. The inciting event of the rest of the series came late, and it came very forced. And it's not uninteresting, but it's not necessarily got me super excited. The reason I'm most excited is Raksh. Yeah. I did like Amina a lot, too. I did like her a lot. I am excited to read more of her, and also I'll just read anything Shannon Chakraborty writes. So, there's that. It was a lot of fun. This book was a lot of fun. I haven't read a proper adventure fantasy in a while. I don't think I've read a quest fantasy in a while. Let me fact check myself. Hold on and pull up my Goodreads. I read Ship of Destiny earlier. Oh, you know what? I guess Fool's Errand technically is a quest adventure story. That felt more like just returning to characters, though, more than plot. But this, besides Fool's Errand, this has been the most recent true adventure story I have read, and I really did like that. It was a nice change. It's not a subgenre of fantasy I can keep returning to, but or like overbloat myself with, but I did really enjoy it. And you know, like I said, Shannon Chakraborty knows how to write. She knows how to tell a story, and I fully appreciate that. And I love Raksh so fucking much. Okay, he was so perfect. Let's take one moment to just appreciate the cover. See if my camera will focus. Oh, there it goes. What a beautiful cover. This is done by the same artist who does Priory of the Orange Tree and Day of Fall Night, and it is just stunning and fantastic. And it's a scene from the book, which is super exciting. I love when they do scenes from the book. Oh, fully love. The artist's name is Ivan Belikov. I always want to say Ivan Belikov, but it's Ivan. So, like I said, 4.5 stars. I did enjoy it. I think that the dragging and is really what knocked it down 0.5 star. The complex political machinations that I wish were there, I don't think that they just would have made the story better. They probably would have brought it to 5 stars. But without them, it just added to the drag more than became its own problem. I don't know when book 2 is coming out. I don't think we even have a title or anything. Yeah, the series is just called Amina al-Sirafi. Yeah, we don't have a title. We do not have a release date. I would probably guess 2025 if I had to. Thank you for watching. I hope you pick this book up. I do really recommend it. If you are a fantasy reader, I think you would enjoy this one. I think that it is. I don't know if it'll be enjoyed by people who aren't big fantasy readers, but I think it's not that genre. If you're looking for a good like adventure story, like if you liked pirate stories like Treasure Island, I think you would like this one. I think it pulls a lot from those kinds of stories and that method of storytelling, and I really appreciated that. If you like Dave Abad, read this. You'll have fun, I think. If you are sort of a YA adult fantasy crossover fan, read this. You'll like it. It's definitely in that realm. And I also, like, complete side note, I feel like I saw so many times people being like, YA author Shannon Chakraborty's first adult book. I was like, Dave Abad is a fucking adult series. Am I being gaslit? Who in the world is calling her a YA writer? Because have you read the books? They're not YA books. Nothing she's written has been YA, unless she has like some pen name somewhere I don't know about, and she's writing teen novels. But I don't think so. So I do feel like I'm being gaslit over her. It's like that TikTok noise where it's like, is it YA or was it just written by women? Yeah, that's how I feel. Anyway, that's my little milk crate. That's not the phrase. My little soapbox. My little soapbox there. It's driving me like up the wall. But anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. If you're a subscriber, thank you. Thank you for putting up. I'm sure the camera has been shaking because the little setup I have is very shaky in this table. It's like no stabilization. But I did really want to just like talk about this book and get it out there. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. It means the world to me to have you here with me. And I hope you pick up this book if you've read it. Please, let's talk about it in the comments. I really want to talk about Raksh, especially if that wasn't clear. I hope if you're somewhere cold, you're staying warm. If you're somewhere warm, I hope you're staying comfortable. And most of all, I hope you're reading a great book. I will see you guys next time. Bye.